It is the end of democracy.
Yeah. We might need to define democracy, and where does it come from? Why do we subscribe into it? Because earlier on, I was in a different platform whereby we were having a discussion about the visit of Zelensky, but then I was asked a question to my views about from 1994 till now, 31 years or 32 years of democracy, and in my mind, I believe once you introduce a system of democracy, of which it's a borrowed foreign ideology for Africans, that ideology will give birth to capitalist system. The capitalist system will give birth to racism, which is what we witness today. We see a systematic racism in terms of the spread of the economy. We also see this systematic or institutionalized racism, whereby black companies are still treated differently. Sometimes you see even the court cases, how the court system are favoring the foreigners, meaning by the colonizers who disguise as investors. So you ask yourself a question that democracy, it's introduced to benefit who, in your opinion? What can you say about democracy? Because for me, I don't have good experience with democracy. I believe it was a dummy that was sold to us as people. So we believe it exists. I mean, some of the places that had informal settlements since then and now, or maybe democracy does not necessarily talk on the changes of our people. So what is it? Is it the colonial masters introduced this system to safeguard their investment in our shores? What is it?
Yeah, you asked a critical question on what is it? Is it linked to capitalism, or is it a system that comes from outside and imposed onto us as Africans, or any other countries that are not part and parcel of the West? To me, whether the definition is perfect or not, I will look at democracy as part and parcel of the capitalist system. We hear people saying that, yes, it's democracy, government by the people, for the people. It's about participation or representation or accountability. But you will never test the juice of it when you look at the characteristics of how the states implement programs, and how the state look at the law as the driving force of programs that we implement around the globe. You look at the global decisions that are made in terms of wars that are taking in line from between the Europeans and the African countries, and any other country that is non-Western. You can see that the decision taken there, it has nothing to do with democracy. Trade agreements also and their practices are violating the principles of democracy. So the way it's defined and the way things are being practiced, they don't gel with one another. We also have global policies and parliamentary processes where you find...
Before you take it further, there is a point you've made there. You're talking about the definition of how it was told to us, and what if the actual democracy, it's what the West is doing to Africans, and the definition that we are told in our expectation, it does not match from what these guys are doing.
Exactly.
Because I saw a cartoon earlier of this white man standing at the pier where two Africans are swimming towards his shore, and they said, "Let us in. You think we're gonna steal from you?" And the white man says, "No, I'm not gonna let you in, because the last time we did that to you, we stole from you. So you might do the same."
Yeah.
So I was asking that question to say, the definition, the laws, the principles, the policies, who came up with all this for a standard ordinary person? How do we, what are the policies? What are policies relevant to an ordinary person versus the African traditional way? Did we have policies? Yes, we did. The law, is the law that is implemented here favors us as the natives, or these laws are meant to safeguard for them again? So that's the area that I wanted you to heal me there by saying to me, the policies, for example, the principles, the guidelines of this so-called democracy, where we're part of the outlining of this. Do we understand it? How do we lose so many court cases? These laws, are these laws prepared elsewhere to come and deal with us here accordingly to what they want? What clear that for me?
Yeah, actually I was saying that you cannot talk about democracy without talking about capitalism, because they go hand in hand. So democracy is not about the way it is defined, that it's the government by the people and for the people. Giving an example, in South Africa, people vote, and then after voting, the government tends to go against what they promised people to do. They become much arrogant, to use the correct language. In fact, that they don't care about the principles that are written already. Let's look at the issue of the increase of the VAT, where the minister even said that I do have a right to increase the VAT. But the question is, did you check other angles that must inform the VAT and the impact of the increase of the VAT? Because when you talk about the democracy, you need to balance your fact. You don't just make decision that is going to make other people feel pain while others getting favored, because all these systems, they are there to favor the capitalists, and these capitalists are the elites. We look at what's happening in the country in terms of the increase in number of unemployed people, and at the same time you say you want to increase a VAT while we have people who can't even put food on the table. Then you are not making decision in a correct manner that will be able to say that we're in a democratic country. So I understand our government is in pain because they want to balance the sheets when it comes to the money that they need to put in place so that they implement programs. But the decisions that are made, you look at them, they are very horrible, very, very horrible to the people, to say that we're in a democratic country.
So at what point, because I want to understand that some parts of the world, they started implementing the tax between 1910 and 1913. In some countries till today, in other countries, tax is still illegal. Now, what I want to find out, the companies that are operating in this country, that are privatized, that are able to access the natural resources of South Africa, how did we get individuals and few families owning things that could have been some form of a relief to South Africans, because I want to believe that South Africa is self-sufficient. South Africa, on its own, it can sustain itself and its own population. Hence, many did not understand the actions of the student when they push the agenda of the fees must fall, because they were informed that the country is self-sufficient. We can have free education, we can have free healthcare, but we cannot have all these things because the colonizers have privatized things that matters to the population the most. Hence, I said, the colonization, democracy, capitalism equals to racism. Because now the ordinary poor people must pay tax on things that big corporations that don't necessarily have the best interest of this country are walking away with big bags of our natural resources. We might have remember in few years back, these guys wanted to build their own airport within the airport so that they don't get searched, so they don't get touched when they stealing and leaving things here. So now, but here's the problem. When a liberation movement accepts to use the same resources and the same offices and the same principles and the same policies and the same police uniforms and everything that the colonizer was using against the ordinary people, some of the laws are still applicable against the natives. So what liberation are you talking about? Where is the radical changes that you needed to change to show? Or maybe when Thabo Mbeki said there was a sunset clause that says we will take certain things, but you remain in your power. We will just do, and some white people were saying, how the ANC negotiated, we wouldn't have agreed some of the things that they accepted. So where does this put us? Where does this put ordinary people? Are politics the right vehicle to govern our people? That's the question.
Yeah, South Africa has its own unique problems. You talk about capitalism, and then you spoke about racism. Another angle, it's about colonialism. We were colonized, and then, we became independent. But it's not really independence, because there is a continuation of colonization, starting from the minds, the manner in which we think, and then coming to the regulations and the laws that we have in the country, and the lack of transformation. Like you said, that there are minds that are still being owned by people who were owning these mines during the course of the apartheid times, which is really, really a question for one to ask. How do they sustain themselves owning resources that belongs to the country? So it means that the tax and the VAT thing is the way of sustaining the power that is coming from the elites, because we do have to say that this belongs to all of us as the country. Why is it only one family or two families that benefiting from these resources? And at what point do we say that those resources belongs to them? So even the laws and the regulations that are put in place around South Africa is just to sustain the power of the elite, making democracy being nothing in the country. On the issue of fees must fall, there's something that I still need to explore. You said that you coming from a family that afford to pay school fees, then pay school fees. We have the 350, for example, the 350s that are being given to unemployed. So meaning that when you are over 18 years, you have the right to get 350, meaning that you can stand for yourself. But when it comes to the school fees, parents must pay for you even if you're above 18 years. So you can tell that there's a manipulation of regulations there, that you will need to push that people pay for the fees, even though they are paying for the adults. You are 18, why should the parents still be responsible for an 18-year child? So there's something that we still need to check from that context. So beside being using the law or in the name of democracy to sustain the power of the elites, there's also so many blurry operations that are happening. I can also talk about the issue of the Land Act, even though there was some improvement coming from the parliament approving on the extension of the law, but it doesn't mean anything. It doesn't mean anything because even they take only the land that is not utilized so that they use it for the public. But there are people who are still owning the land and they didn't get it in a legal manner. They just violated the principles of Ubuntu, where they dealt with our ancestors and took land away from them and give them a mirror, which is unfair. So even the issue of transformation, which is supposed to be the guiding principle for a South African democracy, it does not exist at all. And it's a painful story for one to tell the future generation.
What I believe it also enabling this whole scenario that you are explaining. I study foreign policies of countries and their political systems. I see that in the US, you change the parties, the policies remain the same, because the policies have to benefit the same elite, because they play with money. You go to China, you change the political leaders, but the policies don't change. The party does not change. It's Chinese Communist Party. The policies won't change. No amount of money can influence the policies of China. There's no oligarch that will walk in there and tell them what to do. Whereas in the West, including South Africa, we are here and there. Now, this is what I see. And majority of these so-called politicians are not getting the idea. These people will take your natural resources and refine it and sell it and have this money and come back and fund your political movements and dictate how you should take a direction. As long as elections are funded, as long as there's a door that is opened for people with bags and bags of money to influence the politics from the policy conference, from the political party itself, where a certain leader needs to be elected. There's LV bags that moving up and down to try and pay for people to be steered into a certain direction. But at the end of that, all that money will be circulated amongst the comrades. And as soon as the elections are done or over, that guy walks into the office with a rule book being given by the corporations. Then he's not going to do what he promised to do even when he was campaigning. Because once you're in the office, the story has to change. So what makes things worse, even in South Africa, the colonizer has never left. So the colonizer is mingling in our local politics, even in Africa, where we were threatened to say, if you want white people to go, it's not going to work, because once white people leave, you guys are going to look like you are another form of Zimbabwe. So that is the problem. That is the problem that I see, and I can also indicate to say some of the challenges that we have are coming from the fact that our local people become sellouts and accept money from these big corporations to influence their positions when they are in power. You look at the number of potholes in the country. They are no longer taken care of, because, and again, the time limit of the 4 years, the masters created that I will tolerate you for 4 years. Once you're out, I'm going to replace you with another slave that I'm going to put the cuffs in gold or diamond. But the bottom line is you're still in cuffs. So that is what is happening in today's world. So for me, that was just the critical comment that I say we can have all the brilliant so-called Freedom Charter that not even Black people wrote it. Many don't know that it was a Jewish Zionist who wrote it. It was not a Black person who wrote the Freedom Charter that they jump up and down with. No, it was not. And can we become Burkina Faso? Sankara tried. He was killed. Same year Sankara was killed, a young man was born with Sankara spirit. We see it today.
Yeah.
It's much easier there because the colonizer is minimal there. Here, we have neighbors who are our colonizers that we were sold in the spirit of Rainbow Nation. That does not necessarily exist. And the policies of this country covers for the colonizer more than the natives or the locals.
Yeah.
So is democracy working? How is it supposed to work if it's a colonization, democracy, capitalism, racism? Where are we going?
Yeah. While you were talking, a thought came into my mind. And then I asked myself a question. If the policies are not changing, then why are we voting? After all, things are not working. Things continue to fast, but we run for 5-year elections all the time, thinking that we're going to improve. Starting from the time of Thabo Mbeki, there's no way South Africa has tested the unemployment rate to go below 20%. It's above that. 27%, 32%, it's running along those lines. So, and then you continue voting. We go down to rural areas. We look at the infrastructure being further developed. People are still struggling to get tire road. They saving themselves. And when you are home, especially when you go to funerals, then they ask for civic members representing the ANC, which is usual. And then they start talking and I ask questions, guys, why are you allowing the civic to talk at the funeral? Because they're promoting a particular political party. No, they're promising us to construct some roads. It's still the same, nothing is changing. And because the policies are not changing, and why? There's something behind this political party. Somebody is driving how the political parties must behave and how the government must be ran. Because if there was no somebody, then things would be changing. It's a critical matter that even people need to ask themselves. And then you ask older people, why, Gogo, are you voting for this political party? No, they will take our grant away. They will take our grant away. And then you ask yourself a question, really? We had grant during the apartheid era. We had grant since 1994, even to date. Now we have 350. And that 350, people think that you cannot support family with that 350. It's something to blind people. And people, yes, they need it. But really, you can't even buy it. Actually, you cannot cover yourself below the poverty line or above the poverty line. It's nothing. It means nothing. It's something that you can spend in 3 seconds and it's gone and it means nothing. So somebody's driving and people need to come forward and start talking about this. Unfortunately, when it comes to South Africa, when they're touched by America, I remember when one of the leader of the American Foreign policies, who were, yeah, was an ambassador in South Africa, started telling South Africa that you're not even fixing your corruption stories, and then they went to America with harsh words, but really they are not addressing the real matter. They need to look at this issue of democracy in a comprehensive manner, because in South Africa, with somebody driving the government operations behind the ruling party, nothing will change, nothing will happen, no matter what type of or the name of the political party you will vote, we're still in the same situation. And this problem of the lack of democracy in South Africa, it doesn't end here. It's a global thing. There's a lot that's happening around the world to prove that democracy, whether in theory or practice, never existed, or it's not about that it's eroding. It never existed anywhere. Maybe we need to find a way to make it exist, because it doesn't. We look at the war and the democratic disconnect that's happening in the global space. We can talk about the decisions that were made by the UN with the name of the United States of America, France, and also Britain, dealing with African countries, dealing with Iran, dealing with
Russia.
With Russia. Those are not the decision taken. They don't demonstrate any democratic principle at all. It's dictatorship out of dictatorship. They even violate their own acts that stop presidents, for example, from making decisions on wars without going through the parliament, because the launch of wars needs to be debated in the parliament. If not, then they're going to make horrible mistakes and later they regret their decisions.
So the existence of so-called democracy, I remember when Trump was campaigning, he said, we are tired of wars. And the second line, he said, if I were to be a president, I would have stopped the war in Ukraine within a day. And then he said, America cannot continue with the constant wars out there. He mentioned Afghanistan, that it was a disaster. He mentioned Iraq, that it was a disaster. He mentioned Libya, that it was a disaster. But he continued to supply weapons to Ukraine. So after he said he's gonna stop the war in a day, he continued to supply weapons to Israel to bomb Gaza and West Bank. He continued to supply weapons that he bombed some places in Sana'a, in Yemen, the Houthis. They continue with their military presence in South China Sea, where it's actually far away from the US. So you can tell that they might wish to want to do something, but the script and the mandate that they're given in the name of democracy outside there, what they get when they get to the office is different from what they tell you. Someone said Tumami when he was campaigning, was he talking to us, Uti? We must send him, or he was telling his masters to send him? Who knows?
Yes.
Because from what I see, when he said Tumami, I was telling his bosses to send him to come and finish off and destroy. That's a question that people must answer. Trump is continuing to do that. The trade story, any form of a leader that comes into power needs to do one or two things to defend his people. So they claim. Now, he believes that Americans are treated badly by the outside world because they are selling things to them, charging them high tariffs. So now he's correcting that situation. But that's one part of the conflict. Remember, all these countries that you are pushing 35% tariffs, they come back, they say 200%. You know, who suffers? You. Now, that will speedily lead into a conflict that will lead to war, whether it's an economical war, whether it's an energy war, whether it's a currency war, whether it's a military conflict, who knows? That is start to aggravate other partners within the region of where you are. Then you look at how Assad was removed in Syria. The very same people who were part of ISIS, whereas were told that Assad was elected democratically. The same people who go around and talk democracy funded their own creation, ISIS, to come and topple the person that was elected. He had to run and hide in Russia. And then those guys, they changed their military uniform, they give them suits. Now they call them people that needs to be treated with respect. As long as the West is saying it's correct. If Africa says something is wrong, you know. So I'm looking at this and the examples of what you said. But now, so you might have seen that the big Western countries with so-called democracy, when the rulers planned this, they came up with a system to say, after some time, we need to make a way where big political parties need to collapse. Because when they come to the office, they have 15 key points to deliver to their people. We make sure that they don't get to do that. They must deliver 5 so that people can walk away from them. Then we start another party. Then we can keep people divided. Then we introduce the percentage for coalition government. Germany was the first victim. And then Greece came. Italy came. UK came. So that experimental purpose was done within their areas there. So you start to see the trends. But look at what China and Russia did. When they saw that happening, this became active after 2011, after the Arab Spring, where they were sweeping through the Arab states to install their own pro-Western head of states, you know, Egypt, Libya, Syria, Jordan, on all those parts. The biggest thing was that they put fear through Iraq, and then, but where is this democratic system they preach? Is it? Why are we still talking about it? Should we consider coup systems like what they're doing in West Africa? Who knows? It's going to be very difficult to come up with a coup system whereby your colonizer have never left. You will just pick up the phone, the US Navy or the Navy SEALs or the Marines will be here. And you will make to feel like you were betraying the country by pushing back to what the colonizer has been trying to do for all these years. And your very own people will be selling you out to the master to say, no, we don't agree with what is doing. We are comfortable being slaves, as we've always been. So that is my view. Looking at the global state of things, looking at locally, and ask questions. Would this work? I mean, it's been how many years? 30 years, 30 years plus, but nothing is moving. Things are still the same. Go to the primary school back in the rural area. We still have math schools. So this democracy that is introduced, Alex, I mean, Cyril promised 1 million houses in Alex. Did he build 10? Who is holding him into account? All the promises he made. All that Cyril will tell you is shocked. That's all he will say. Oh, I'm shocked. Oh, I'm shocked. Oh, I'm shocked. All these things. So when are we holding these people into account? Where are we matching Zuma must fall? How come we don't have Cyril must fall if he has done wrong? How come we did not have Thabo Mbeki must fall? How come we did not have, and who funds this must fall? Guess what? US aid was at the center of the regime change in South Africa. So they get the access because they're still here. They use the money that is stolen from here to continue and use and blind, stupid people to ensure that they push their own agenda while they're sitting in their holidays. They know colonialism, you put it into black people, you put it on autopilot, black people become colonial masters by themselves without any white person getting involved. And that's a reality. And we've seen it happen.
Yeah. You said Tumamina. Yes, Tumamina. Everywhere in the world, it's like Tumamina. You remember when Gaddafi was murdered in a painful manner with US, UK, and France in the center? It led to, it escalated into a regime change and also culminated the overthrow of Gaddafi, and he was eventually killed. And then later, the French and the UK Parliament, they went back to look at what happened in the form of oversight and realized that there was minimum consultation, not from the context of the British, the United States of American people, and also the French, and also the people of Libya themselves, because later there was lots of articles where people of Libya were regretting why they allowed Gaddafi to be killed by allowing the to come and control. So Tumamina, it's not for us, the civilians, it's for the elites, because when they get what they get after, they start neglecting the majority. So there's a lot that we can talk about Tumamina not working well in the world, because look at Mugabe and the issues of him trying to fight the Westerners. He was always arguing against Tony Blair and Bush. And other African countries were not really supporting him. Some were criticizing him, looking at him as a bad person, but those who were criticizing him, they were using Western theories to say that he's a dictator. They're supposed to come up with democracy. But the question is, do they have democracy themselves? They don't have it. There's a lot we can talk about the decision that they make on trade that goes against their local people, where you find that they favor multinational companies rather than local people. And you find that through that, the job security gets insecure, because once you start allowing the multinationals to come and operate, they come up with their own rules. And those rules, they will tell you that they gel with local development. It's not true. They're there to rip off local resources and take their wealth back to their countries. So we have so many stories happening in Latin America where you find that the multinational companies, they also violate the environmental principles. It's a painful story to discuss about. Yeah.
So in summing up the talk around democracy, what questions do we pose into our people? Because we need to keep these conversations happening. We need to interrogate certain things, even though we might not have some answers today or tomorrow. We need to revisit this subject. We need to look at the curriculum. We need to look at the agricultural sector. We need to look at the one of the most important things in our existence, our cultural and spiritual things. We need to look at the traditional ways, the medicines, the traditional medicines, and all the founding principles of Africanism, you know, and how the education system has infiltrated the mind of our children, whereby you tell them of who they are, they tell you that I don't care. It's got nothing to do with me. And also the subliminal messages that the West is sending through. I mean, you look at the colors, you go to majority of this Model C school, you'll either see red and white, the British colors, you'll see more blue that will associate with your DA and your colonel. So all these other things around, the way we think, the way we talk, the way we behave, the way we dress, the way we imagine, it's been captured. We don't see these things from our own point of view. It is created elsewhere, imported to our faces, and then we take it to put it in our mind and start to implement it. You know, so we need to put the people who are watching into a position where let's start asking questions. If we don't have answers today, we'll ask again tomorrow. And the more the many of us talk about these things, we will eventually get a breakthrough. We might not have 100 people in one go. One that we have is going to influence 10. That 10 will influence 50. That 50 will influence where we will have to be wide awake. And the older generation, while we're closing, do you think the older generation in politics are playing an honest role that will path a way forward for us? So when you sum it up, touch on that, and then we'll put this to rest. Then when we come back the following week or following day, we'll then have to revisit that and see how many people have questions and comment, so we can slowly be guided into finding solutions, where we'll have a talk about solutions to all the things we say. And where do we start? And where is the way forward? Can we do it? Can we start? If we start, how big or small should we be? Thank you.
Yeah. So you asked a question if older people are interested in revisiting the issue of democracy.
Also, yes.
Yeah, contributing. My view is that it's not like democracy was destroyed through the process. Is that or events? Is that the events they demonstrated that a democracy does not exist. It doesn't exist anywhere. Because we look at the different aspects, be it trade, and then the role of the multinational companies, and then the governance, and then the parliament itself are playing critical role in demonstrating that democracy does not exist. So we are in dark. The process it's in darkness. So for us to say that let's participate, we need to check the where, from which point should we participate? Are we starting from going back and define exactly what is democracy, and how can we go about looking at different aspects in the social settings on how we can ensure that democracy does survive? So what I would want the people who are interested in wanting for things to work well, they need to go back and look at the activities that are happening worldwide and taking into consideration the practices in South Africa and question themselves, do we have democracy? If we do have it, then where should we improve? If we don't have it, what is that we can bring forward to make sure that we start having a democracy? Only if we see democracy as the way to go, because if it never existed, maybe it's not a good thing, because like I said, that it's the tool of the the Westerners, or is the tool of the powerful institutions with quite decisions that they are making, and the individuals in the community to reclaim democracy from that context. While we don't have power, it's not possible. So power has been taken away from the people, and then in the name of democracy, and because it doesn't exist at all.
Thank you, Kokwanti Nico, for the insight. And when you have these conversations, you feel like you are waking up. You feel like these are things that we hardly talk about. But when we are talking about it, you start to realize more things. You start to look around you. I mean, we've been kept busy with sport. We've been kept busy with TV. We've been kept busy with cell phones. And then the Roman Empire said, create a circus.
Yeah.
Let them go and watch. Give them bread. Don't forget about the revolt.
Yeah.
DSTV, it's a perfect circus. I mean, they recycle old movies where we still need to subscribe and take our hard-earned money and pay for it. Go to any informal settlement, look at the amount of satellite dishes you'll see there. Within the heart of poverty, the colonial masters are there. In your fridge, it can be empty, but Coca-Cola is in there. Your children, no matter how sick they can be, they will eat McDonald's. They will eat KFC. You drive by a taxi rank, you smell KFC. You drive in the suburb, you'll never see KFC. Then ask yourself a question. If KFC was a good business, how come you don't find it in the suburbs? Now, here's the question. If voting really worked, would they allow us to vote?
No.
That's where I'm going to end it for tonight. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah.
VM Network, it's your time to tune in. Stories that connect where we all begin. Laughter, lessons, journeys unfold. VM Network, let the stories be told.